you ready, baby?
It is time for the first installment of Upon Further Review for the 2015 NFL season. I'm AJ Bellino.
I'm Diego Del Barco.
You may note that we're doing this on video, and that's because we got sick and freaking tired of writing 8 drafts and then vomiting them up on Thursday night. So instead, we're just going to scream at the camera.
Well, he's going to scream, I'm going to talk.
Yeah, well, yeah, something like that. Headed into week 1 of the 2015 NFL season, questions aplenty surrounded the San Francisco 49ers. Leaving coaching, management, and ownership out of the equation, there were a bunch of questions about the 49er defense, and specifically how they were going to stop Adrian Peterson, who is, for all intents and purposes, the best running back of his generation. AP came into the game prognosticated to run all over Levi Stadium, up, down, sideways, and backwards. What happened for real? This happened for real. 10 carries, 31 yards, 3.1 yards per carry, almost nothing after contact. Adrian Peterson got bloodied and battered by a defense that looked very hungry. Starting in the middle with Ian Williams, who basically dominated the A-gaps for the day. He was a stud inside, took away the inside gap. There was nowhere for Adrian Peterson to go trying to run in between the tackles. That made life really easy for Navarro Bowman. That made life really easy for Jaquiski Tartt. That made life really easy for Antoine Bethea. Those middle safety pressures when the 49ers went with a nickel prowl look all day long. Bringing the outside linebackers, bringing Brooks and Lynch. Lynch did a heck of a job setting the edge and really bringing pressure from his side of the field. Another guy who showed up, finally, Tank Carradine, netted himself a sack. Surprise, surprise, surprise. But at the end of the day, the 49er defense, under the leadership of the man genius, held the Minnesota Vikings offense to one third down conversion in 9 tries. No 4th down conversions in 2 tries. They netted 5 sacks, grabbed a pick, and at the end of the day did a really great job of flummoxing a Norv Turner offense, which is something that experts didn't think they were going to be able to do. Net, the defense showed up, the defense balled out, and in my estimation, they earned themselves a big fat gold star for week 1.
And then on the other side of the ball, when you look at the offense, I really thought that Colin Kaepernick had a really good game. Last week, Ed and I were talking about kind of where our concerns were going into the season. He brought up the offensive line, more specifically towards the right side, where I was more concerned with, what are we going to be able to get out of Kaepernick this season? And going at the end of the season, are we going to be able to know for sure whether he's going to be our quarterback or not? That was a really big thing for me. And I was also a little bit concerned about how maybe problems with the offensive line were going to keep us from being able to evaluate him fairly as far as, what we can get out of him. And on Monday night, I thought that he had a really, really good game. Not statistically, that wasn't really pretty when you go look at the box score. It was 17 of 26, 165 yards, no passing touchdowns. He also had no interceptions. He didn't really get sacked. The one sack on the stat sheet will be when he ran out of bounds at the line of scrimmage. That's nitpicking. He wasn't really sacked. He was really comfortable in the pocket. He had a good pocket to work with, but he was also able to maneuver within the pocket. He was able to step up in the pocket, and he was able to find the open guys. He was in command of the huddle. He was in command of the offense. He knew where his guys were. He was really comfortable in offense, and that was really something pleasant to see, given what we saw last season. Maybe if I gotta take the biggest thing that I was able to observe on Monday night, where situations where last season, maybe the years before, he would just lane comes open, he can't see the guy open, so he tucks it in and run. This Monday night, I thought there were about 5, maybe six different times when he stepped up in the pocket and there were clear lanes for him to run and go out and get some yardage, but he had the maturity of staying committed to being a passer, which is, I think, something maybe he got out of working with Kurt Warner, and finding the open guys several times for pretty good chunks of yardage.
So basically climbing the pocket and working his way forward, making sure he left his passing lanes open, not cutting the field in half by switching his hips up.
Exactly. And that's a big step. Like, if you're evaluating Kaepernick the way I've been, and I think we can kind of agree on this, we haven't seen that before. And so that's, as far as a pocket quarterback that can win you games, you got to be really excited about that going, not just into week 2, but the rest of the season, because you have to assume that with a new offense coming in, this is only going to get better. So what you saw in week 1, he had really bright spots, and he also had some accuracy issues, and he did miss some throws. But overall, you had a lot more positives than negatives. So you have to be really excited about what Kaepernick's going to bring to the offense going forward.
The 49ers are going to travel to Heinz Field to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that creates a couple of problems for a West Coast team. Number one being the 10 a.m. start. That's never easy for any team to overcome, no matter what any coach or player tells you. That there are a time swing makes a difference. The issue that I'm concerned about, though, and this is something you guys have probably noticed if you watched last week's game, new kid in town, Carlos Hyde, showed up. He had 168 yards on 26 carries, ended up rocking 6.5 yards a carry, 77 yards after contact. That's 3 yards a pop every time he touched the ball. A defender hit him, he got 3 more yards. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a baller. And it was the backbone of what the 49ers did offensively on Monday night. Going to be a little bit of a different story in Pittsburgh, though. Pittsburgh has got a really great defense, even if the numbers don't show up on their overall defensive ranking. Specifically, these guys have run defenders. Off the top, Steve McClendon, a stud nose tackle. And the matchup there is going to be Steve McClendon on rookie Marcus Martin, who had...
second year of Marcus Martin.
Plays like a rookie. So, Martin had an admirable showing on Monday night. McClendon's a dominator, not to mention the fact that he's got a stud inside linebacker, Ryan Shazier, coming off the right side. So coming off the left side, the left inside linebacker. So you're going to have Shazier taking on Jordan Debbie, or rather Debbie having to get to the second level to create holes in this zone blocking scheme for Carlos Hyde next week. And if the 49ers plan on making noise, you're really going to have to pay close attention to how they manage players like McClendon, players like Shazier, players like Jarvis Jones, who is a stud outside linebacker, players like Michael Mitchell, who roll up and run support often. Sooner or later, the 49ers are going to have to do more than hand the ball to number 28. And that means your guy, Colin Kaepernick, is going to have to find a way to stretch the field.
That's right. And I know, when we're talking about week 1, you obviously you broke down the defense and how well they did. And I think going into week 2, I spent a lot of time the past couple of days kind of looking at the game from Monday Night Football against the Vikings. And as great as the Niners defense was, and I really don't mean to take anything away from what they did, because they were dominant. Even the greatest defense, sometimes they'll give you little breaks and they'll give you little holes. There were times on Monday night when Teddy Bridgewater just flat out missed throws. I mean, he was off from the get-go. I'm talking about first drive. He missed Darius Wright for what would have been a first down, probably first and goal. Later on a really nice play design to Kyle Rudolph, came wide open on the left side. He completely overshot him. That would have been a nice 15-yard gain. And then he missed, and going back to Darius Wright, who I really thought had a nice game, missed him twice. On one what I thought would have been a sure touchdown, and another one I thought would have been about a 30-yard gain. Ben Roethlisberger is just not going to miss all the same throws that Teddy Bridgewater was missing. And so going into week 2, I have to think about the Niners really need to build up on what they did on week 1, and they need to be able to kind of hone down on Ben Roethlisberger, because the other thing you got to take into account really is who's the number one guy for Pittsburgh at wide receiver? Antonio Brown. And the Vikings don't have anybody on the roster like Antonio Brown who can play outside, can play inside, and basically anywhere you line him up.
Wallace is no slouch.
Who is no slouch?
Wallace is no slouch.
Wallace ain't no Brown. As a matter of fact, Pittsburgh got rid of Wallace because they had Brown. So Antonio Brown's just going to cause matchup problems all day. And so I really think the Niners are going to just kind of play two safeties back. They're Pittsburgh to run the ball, because if they stop Peterson, basically almost embarrass them, they can stop DeAngelo Williams. So, but the key going into week 2 is when they do go to Brown, are we going to be able to just kind of cover him? And nobody can cover him if you're not getting to the quarterback and they're scrambling out. Ben Roethlisberger and Brown have great chemistry when the play breaks down and Ben is able to kind of improvise. And you can't ask anybody to cover Brown for more than 5-6 seconds. So I think it's going to be key to be able to stop the run with two safeties back, and then when you do blitz, and we know Mangini's going to blitz.
Well, they got to get multiple in their pressures.
Yes, and you have to be able to get to the quarterback, or at least bother him enough so he's not able, because Bridgewater missed some throws when he had a clean pocket and he had time to look. You can't give those kind of spaces to big men. I think you have to be able to put more pressure on him than we did in week 1 when you're only rushing 4, and then when you're blitzing, you definitely have to get there.
Well, and just to kind of close on that thought, I really feel like the 49ers are going to have that ability. They're going to have the ability to do that, just given on where it is that they brought pressure this last week. I think there's a good chance that they're going to make that happen from the corner, from the outside linebacker, from the safety spots, not just from their big uglies.
I hope so. I'll let you go first.
There are questions going into this game. First and foremost, how are the 49ers going to deal with a really stout run defense? Sure, the secondary looked a little confused. Maybe they forgot to cover Gronkowski. He's not exactly a big guy. I mean, you can miss him, right? At the end of the day, this is the deal, and this is what a lot of you people are talking about. Look, Pittsburgh's defense is not nearly as bad as they looked in New England. They're not. Their headsets are going to work this week.
Yeah.
And they are going to be keyed up after what they feel was getting ripped off when they were out at Gillette Stadium. So what I'm going to say just straight away here is that I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to show up and they're going to play a hell of a game. What I think is going to happen is that the strengths of their defense, specifically as it pertains to bringing pressure from the outside, are going to be countered by a 49er attack that's going to be in the pistol all day long. They're going to put the threat of the zone read out there. They're going to flatten out the pass rush, and they're going to use that flattened out pass rush to create cutback lanes for their run game. I think they exploit it, and I think the 49ers get out of this. My pick, I take the 49ers winning this game 17-14.
Oh, we're even throwing out scores and everything. I think we're going to end up also agreeing on this one. And, a lot of the people in the media, even after what we showed in week 1, we don't seem to be focusing a whole lot on really, there was expectation versus reality, what we actually showed. And again, we're not going to overreact to one game. But I think if you look at what you were expecting coming into the season versus what you saw, you have to be taking the 49ers a little bit more seriously going into this Pittsburgh game where they have no Le'Veon Bell. Yeah. They have no
Martavis Bryant. No Le'Veon Bell.
If they had a full team,
and remember they're missing Pouncey too. They're down right, starting center. Sure.
By the way, who are they starting at center? Pop quiz.
That's okay.
You ready?
Teach me, sir.
Cody Wallace. You know where that name comes from? Talk about bad Niner picks. But anyways, if they had a full squad, I'd be really hard pressed to pick against the Steelers. But the way they look and what we saw in week 1, I think we're going to be able to run the ball again on Pittsburgh. I think Hyatt's going to go for a nice game. And I think we're going to be able to bring enough pressure on the Steelers to, I think it's going to be a close game also. I'm actually going 21-17, and I'm picking the Niners.
Well, all right. I am AJ Bellino. You can find me at USMC Legbreaker on Twitter.
I am Diego Del Barco, and I actually keep it really easy. You can just put my name and my last name all together on Twitter, and that'll be me.
Thanks so much for joining us, and have a bang-up week, kids.
Yeah.